where we provide options for lease finance, which is basically an opportunity for individuals to lease assets to companies by participating in taking fractional stakes as small as 20,000 rupees in mobility, electronics, and furniture assets. We started our journey in June 2020, and between June and now have completed close to 23 transactions, working with some of the largest both startups as well as some of the more reputed names in these industries. We are excited to see the kind of growth on our platform, and we'll talk about some of our numbers later. But it is our vision to build this as a new asset class, um, fixed income asset class for investors in India. The objective of this session is to talk about similar opportunities. Sudarshan runs a very interesting company which is providing fractional ownership of commercial real estate, and we felt it would be an interesting conversation to have with him, and try to share our insights on the broader market and alternative investment space. Perfect. With that, Sudarshan, would love to hear about your background and a little bit more about Starta. Some of the audience may already be familiar with the work you're doing, but it would be good to go to some of the basics and the basics behind Starta as a company.
No, perfect. Firstly, thank you so much again, Nikhil and Vivek, for having me here. So just a little bit about what we're doing at Strata. Again, rightly said, Nikhil, we are creating a fixed income asset class for investors. Traditionally, we've seen people have two kinds of income streams as passive income. One is rental, the other one is interest income. And I think that's what both of us are building, independently from an interest income side, which you guys are doing, and we are doing from a rental income standpoint. Where it all begun is where we felt that there is a great opportunity for assets which investors are keen to acquire, but ticket size becoming a large problem. Second problem is, even if I had that kind of money, it was concentrated exposure. Putting all your eggs into one basket is obviously risky. Same like what you guys are doing. Nobody is recommended to invest all their money into, say, only one leasing activity, only for one company. You rather diversify and invest across other opportunities which are there on your platform. Same way with our end is what we propose to investors, that hey, work towards diversifying your investments across different portfolio properties for that matter, and create a good portfolio for yourself across different markets, across different tenant profile, across different micro markets for the same time. This gives you, some kind of a hedge over any kind of a downturn which any one industry can face at any given point of time, right? So this is what we do. We give investment opportunities to investors as low as 25 lakhs. That's what it is. From a real estate standpoint, it is relatively lower, but for a normal person, it's typically very, very high as an investment. But 25 lakhs is a minimum ticket through one can invest onto a platform and get to access grade A opportunities on a platform and start owning them through the fund structure what we have. So that is what we do. It's been just a little bit over a year and a half since we started the business. We today manage close to about 230 crore in AUM. That is how we have been building, been gradually building, taking a lot of feedback from our investors, the kind of assets they are looking at, the kind of opportunities and markets they're looking at investing. And that's when we keep scouting and keep evaluating such opportunities and keep presenting it to them one by one. We are also opportunists, which means we're making the most of good stress deals available in the market as well, and that's what we are looking at listing out in the coming few months for investors, so that over and above the average market rents is what we could make over our investments. So in a nutshell, that's what we do, Nikhil.
And maybe just to provide that in context and also draw some similarities between what Grip and Starta do, is to curate opportunities for Strata in the real estate, commercial real estate and warehousing space. In the case of Grip, in movable assets like vehicles or electronics or furniture, and identify these opportunities both from a credit and returns perspective, and provide them to investors through our digital platforms. We then both attract investors to participate. Obviously, the check sizes are vastly different. The minimum check size for Strata is 25 lakhs, and we are at 1/100th of that check size at 20,000 rupees. But I think the essential premise is the same, that it's a fixed income instrument. one side is real estate, which is appreciating, and other side is a depreciating asset that we have. But to provide that as an opportunity to, so Sudarshan, we've been very interesting to see that whichever deal has been coming in the any sense of number of AUM, any sense of investors that you can share with us to give maybe a reflection of the quantum of investment that are going in now?
Sure. So like I said, we managed today 240 crore in AUM. Pandemic did hit everyone for that matter, but things at least what investors realized that they would rather now have a good passive income investment stream and not be so volatile the way things were during the pandemic we're still in the pandemic, but during the lockdown rather for that matter. So today we are at 240 crore, just a shy away than 240 crore in AUM right now. Our average ticket size on our platform today is almost in the average of about 55 lakh rupees. There are multiple investors who invested in more than 2 properties with us as well. Approximately about 600 odd investors, 650 odd investors who have invested on our platform and are looking at investing. It took time for us, for people to understand, and I'm sure for you guys as well, where once somebody understands the proposition, what you're doing, maybe they explore with the first check, and the minute things go well, they come back and invest again. I'm sure it's been the same situation for you guys as well. Is what we are seeing as entire experience. They're coming back and investing with us again. So today, I think on a platform which is healthy in almost 75% of the money is parked into safe asset class. Gold is a different asset class for India. It's emotional. It's the Mayday kind of an asset class which you do out, and typically people don't sell gold unless there's an urgent need of money or they mortgage eventually on those things. Deposits, which is what most of the banks, and why fixed deposits interest rates have fallen down, because it's at all-time high. And residential investments and fixed deposits are giving about 3, 4, 5% kind of returns today. Residential investment as an asset class does not make sense anymore, because people used to invest only for appreciation, because the rentals are only about 2%, 3% at max, which also is no longer there in the market as such, right? I mean, the amount of supply is way more than the demand. So obviously there is always a sluggish demand. It's very difficult for you to liquidate that kind of a property as well. So which is why we felt that if 75% of the large wealth is parked into these, the balance 25 being into, say, an alternative asset class, for that matter, say into commercial real estate, into equity for that matter, which, obviously Zerodha keeps talking about, that India's penetration is only 2% for that matter. And a bunch of other things is where we felt that if there could be other safe asset classes which investors can make investments, have a good return portfolio, for them, there is a tremendous opportunity for us to do it, right? I mean, strictly speaking, from a very real estate standpoint, from a very statistic standpoint, last year alone, 2019, 20, I'm not talking about 2021, which can also be a different number story altogether as the year ends. But last year, about 2.8 lakh apartments were sold, out of which about 55% of that was for end use, 45 was for an investment, right? So even if you keep an apartment average price of a crore, you're talking about a whopping about 1.3 lakh crore invested into residential as an investment, where you make about 2% kind of a return, right? So clearly investors are looking for a good alternative asset class where they could make much better returns. Obviously, capital safety is one parameter which they're always keen about, but there is always a good chunk of investors who are keen to make a part of their wallet share into something where they can make much better returns, keep coming back and keep making returns after the other. So that is where we felt that there is an opportunity for an alternative asset class as such, from a platform-led investment, where they don't get just opportunities, but they get even all the transparency which they need for the investments, right? So through a platform, investors get access to all the sale, lease, loan transactions of all the properties they have invested in. So they don't need to listen to me or anybody else. They can see on what is being, what is available on the platform. I mean, what is being traded in the market and what is being registered with the government. I mean, there's nothing as authentic as that, for that matter, from a benchmarking standpoint. So this is what we are building for investors so that they can create a much better return for the investments instead of residential or fixed deposits investments. And likewise, what you guys are building is also similar, where for investors who are always keen on investing into debt funds and they make about 6%, 7% for that matter, or 8%. I mean, always good to have a portfolio into these kind of asset classes where obviously the return is far better than what a debt fund could offer. But likewise, the risk profile, but then it's always good to have an exploratory wallet share into such kind of an asset class where people can start investing and start owning a piece of such asset classes and get exposure, more importantly, and enjoy returns out of it.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Just to share some of the trends that we are seeing. Um, we have about 800 unique investors on the platform now who have at least invested once. As you correctly mentioned, people start with a smaller check size to test the waters, but there is the risk return obviously of the kind of assets that we're dealing in or kind of financial investment options providing is very different. People are definitely looking to diversify across mutual funds, across stock markets, fixed income. If you were to ask me, I think majority of the investors on our platform are not new to investing.
Yeah.
They've actually invested in other places and they're looking for now diversification, which has typically not been available to all investors. It may have been available to some family offices and UHNIs, but not to everyone else. And I think that is what is really being sought with the stock market at where it is, the fixed deposits where they are. I think there's definitely a hunt for a much better return or risk to return ratio. At the same time, um, if the platform is doing a good job, both in terms of the quality of information being provided, the transparency, the performance of the assets, timely repayments, I think there is an opportunity to receive fairly good repeat rate. So Darshan, our repeat rate is currently at about 45%. So 45% investors are on their second investment. And in fact, 10% are on their fifth investment. So investors who are seeing that traction and are able to build trust definitely are looking to participate, which makes me believe that there is a lot of demand for these kind of investment options. At the same side, there is a lot of demand for capital, right? Both, and I think that's the interesting place for us. But stepping up aside from just Starta and Grip, I think platforms across the board, alternative investment platforms, whether it's being P2P lending, invoice discounting, you name it, have probably seen a watershed moment in 2020 in terms of the amount of liquidity that's available in the market and it's coming into play. The question that comes is that what is the role that a platform must play in delivering that, and how should some of the investors think about the risk of making these investments, right? And would love to pick your thoughts on how you advise investors when you speak to them about writing those 25-35 lakh rupee checks, and what should they keep in mind?
Got it. So Nikhil, I mean, firstly, this is a platform not for people who have just started earning money. What we are building, for that matter, this is ideally for people who have touched typically 30 and above, for that matter, because today on our average, our platform, people are about 35 plus as investors who have their own home, have good stable other incomes which are there, and they are now looking at investing into something from a long-term investment standpoint. Our asset class is not recommended for people who have a horizon of investment of less than 3 to 5 years, bare minimum, for that matter. Anything over and above that is what is recommended again. So if you have any investment horizon of, let's say, less than 2 years, less than 3 years, definitely not recommended to invest into startup, because clearly real estate does not work that way. Real estate has its own time for gestation, for it to get mature, for the market to devolve, and only then you can get your real value for your property and the investment which you made in. So these are two core parameters which are very, very important. And again, as a part of the asset allocation or the pocket allocation, which I keep talking about, where people should make allocation basis, how much money should have in gold, how much should in all the other asset classes. Again, this is a part of the allocation which you should keep once you say have a house, once you have some kind of a fixed income, a clear job, or whatever it is, for that matter, and then you put into this kind of an asset class, and then you keep building a portfolio once you are comfortable understanding the risks associated with it, right? One thing which we know that, see, we are taking properties with long lock-ins or at least 3 to 5 year kind of lock-in arrangement, so that at least we know for a fact that 3 to 5 years, there is a clarity of the revenue which we would keep getting in the form of rents. However, there's always a chance that the tenant can leave. right? And it might take 6 months, a year to find another tenant, right? So you should not always be dependent that, okay, I'll only enjoy the rental income and take care of these things, because this is another alternative investment which you're making. So hence, from that standpoint, this is not your mainstream investment per se. So the minute you have regular returns, and or if you made 6 7 investments with us for that matter, then you can always consider mainstream, because even if one or two say go out of tenant after 3 years 5 years for that matter, there are still other 5 6 which are still giving you returns from a standpoint. So this is what is the core intent which we have as well for people who are looking at investing. So typically we tell people, you have a house. If you don't have a house, please don't invest first. You should invest in your own house, because there's nothing more aspirational than owning your own house for that matter. And then after owning one more house, I mean, owning a house, owning another house is a crime from an investment standpoint, because again, for 2 3% return, it just doesn't make sense anymore to participate. So the broadly pointers for our platform, and from our platform standpoint, again, we stand for transparency as much as possible. Again, as a startup, sometimes the expectations of the investors can be a little different to what you're looking at providing. But as a platform, we always strive towards ensuring that you can meet up to their expectations and standards and try to keep growing. And all our investors have been great in terms of the kind of, and I mean, they've been patient, more importantly, because even they know for the fact that this is not something which is done, as traditionally. As a matter of fact, there's a whole lot of technology, and technology might have certain glitches initially, and but it gets streamlined eventually over a period of time. So all our investors on our platform have been those patient people, and have given us that time and encouragement, so that we can keep improvising. And I'm sure people would keep coming back to you with opportunities as well, that, hey, why don't you look at this as an industry for you to explore and stuff like that. So that's what has happened for us as well, and that's how we've been growing strength to strength as we keep scaling. In fact, our platform is absorbing a lot more. Like our last asset which we had done for about a 47 crore asset, we subscribed it in less than 4 days. So clearly we are seeing the kind of investors who are coming on board, where we are feeling that, okay, supply might become a problem and not demand, right? So that is definitely a great problem. But with that, it gives us much better bargaining power to get much better deals at much better prices for our investors as we keep scaling up. So these are things. So we are building the entire platform for them, because ideally we are a platform which is enabling their investment into such things. We try to give everything on to their platter before they decide their investment. Again, there's no compulsion for them to invest. I mean, it's always them to decide which market, which property, the kind of tenant, do the background check, do the ref checks before you decide to invest. So that is what we do. But as a platform, we take care of as much as due diligence on behalf of you, because at the end of the day, we are managing on your behalf. So it's our responsibility to do everything, which we do very proactively as much as possible, and propose the opportunities to investors. So there is obviously accountability on our head, but always recommended for investors to go through each and everything before they decide to invest in the opportunity as
Understood.
such.
One of the questions I get very frequently, and you mentioned this point, is being able to identify those assets. We often get asked, why would a leasing come to you to get assets, right? And last week, obviously, everyone knows we've had the Brookfield REIT that happened. There is enough foreign institutional capital that is chasing high quality real estate assets, whether the commercial, warehousing, retail side. Would love to hear from you where you see the differentiation that Strata is able to bring in acquiring some of these assets, and how does that then create an opportunity for investors to participate in them?
So initially, obviously, we had our own risks, own challenges rather than risk of convincing people that, hey, give us the property, because like, who are you? We don't even know you for that matter. We've been doing things consistently for the last 1.5 years, convincing people enough. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to get an opportunity on our platform. For an investor, it is like, okay, it's just simple call, say I'm investing into the opportunity. That's how we are trying to do. But there's a whole lot of hard work which goes before we get the opportunity in terms of negotiating, because we want to negotiate the best price for them. Because now that we have the data of all the benchmarking of all the sale lease transactions in the market, I don't want to overpay for any property at any given point of time, just in the assumption, in the hope of building AUM for ourselves, right? So hence, from that standpoint, we are very clear. We would rather go slow, but we don't want to overpay for any particular property. Considering we know the benchmarking, it's even difficult for us to overpay at any given point of time. So that is one thing which is very, very important for us, which we proactively keep looking at. Second is initially, which the challenges we had where people are doing, now that we have reached to a certain point where people know what we do and some kind of credibility, the kind of people who are there on our platform, we have more than about 8,000 people signed up on our platform who are, when I say signed up, they are people who are qualified as investors. There are many who are shopping, who have no idea or might not have that kind of money to invest. So we don't qualify them as investors, but that's the kind of people we have today on our platform, which gives me that kind of bargaining power to get a much better deal, right? Now, these larger funds look at buying an entire building only. They don't buy these half buildings, floors of any buildings, but these are the biggest opportunity. What these large funds typically buy are these 10-20% of the entire market share for that matter, which is acquiring an entire building. But 80% of the market has been a market which is strata sold. So that's when the name strata comes in. Strata means you buy floor by floor of a building. Our idea is to keep buying floor by floor and eventually acquire the entire building itself, as a matter of fact. Third biggest thing which is there for us, which most of the funds are not able to do, is we take decisions faster because we understand what is happening in the market and we think as an HNI, right? On how do we go about this particular opportunity, the tenant profile, etc., and we move forward. So maybe a fund is looking at these top Fortune 10, so maybe top Fortune 50 tenants for that matter, but we're looking at this Fortune 51 to Fortune 5,000 tenants, which are also there, and they're probably not occupying 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 50 lakh kind of square feet facilities, but are occupying only 50,000 square feet facilities. So we're going after those kind of asset classes, which typically fund are there. But honestly speaking, the market is so big that even if funds come in and invest say thousands of billions of dollars, even $1 trillion, still there is a far bigger opportunity lying over there for HNIs and for platforms like us to offer these properties and opportunities to our investors to keep proposing it to them. So just that the market opportunity is just so big that even if as many funds keep coming in, life doesn't change at all. There are opportunities which keeps coming in because especially from an Indian standpoint, we are on the cusp of major development happening. People are presuming that real estate might go down from here, but in my opinion, this is the time it's going to rebound to a greater height for that matter, because the dollar is at all-time high. For countries which are now going to look at, or for companies which are looking at in these countries for cost cutting, one of the major costs for any company is salaries, right? And that is what they would come. Like there was one of the CFO of a large IT company who was an investor on our platform, and during the pandemic, I was out talking to him that are you going to let go office spaces? What are your plan of action, etc. He like, Sudarshan, if I'm spending 100 rupees per month, my in my entire P&L as a company in India, my rent is 1 rupee or 2 rupee at max, right? So trust me, it's nothing. I mean, for me, first thing I would do is lay off people irrespective of that. And they know for a fact that as things go forward, more job opportunities are going to come into India. More opportunities from abroad, which are looking at over there, will getting offshored into India, and they'll start coming in. So hence, from that standpoint, he was very clear. We're not letting go any single office space because we know it's there. Maybe we'll try to negotiate to get a better rental for that matter, which everybody is doing in the market at this point of time, trying to make the most of the advantage of the situation. But otherwise, everyone is in for a long-term 5-year, 10-year, 20-year kind of mindset. Like, people like Goldman Sachs, etc., have bought their own facilities and have constructed 1 million square feet worth of office spaces where they are housing their entire company, right? So if they're doing and taking such large calls, clearly these guys are here to stay.
No, I mean, I think it's and I think we're hearing it all around. It's a fantastic time to be building a business. It's a fantastic time to be raising capital and deploying it into assets. And you and I spoke about this, that I think everyone on this call has been born or grown up in a time when the stock market in India existed, right? And we have just accepted shares as a form of financial investment, but it is really the first form of fractional ownership of anything that got created, where everyone could become a owner of a business and take part in the growth of the business. Now, the stock markets made it democratized that ownership, but the democratization of physical assets like real estate and mobility and electronics didn't get a chance. Technology has reached the next level. Business models have reached the next level where that is really beginning to happen. And it's an exciting time for companies like yours and mine to be really to be seeing that at the forefront and taking it forward.
No,
so hopefully,
just to add one point here, very rightly said what you brought out. See, for even the government to look at this as a space that this can become very large for that matter, we are nobody today, and the market impact in terms of market share is literally 0.00%, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So unless you don't become sizable enough, where government starts realizing, okay, this is an opportunity worth doing, like Flipkart for that matter, right? There were nothing around aggregation laws for that matter. Obviously, no government has any foresight the fact that Flipkart जैसी कोई company will come in 2014-15 and start developing something like this, and we should start creating laws around it. So it's only with time where once you start scaling up is when governments come up and start realizing that, okay, this is an opportunity and let's start focusing on making this more. But what we are seeing as a trend from the government standpoint is they want more retail participation into all these asset classes for that matter, with all whatever they're trying to do. This is just shows opportunity that retail will now get access to far better opportunities, in the times to come.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Shashank, I'm going to move to some of the questions that we have from the audience. I'm going to try to combine a few of them together. The first one is, you regulated today, and a related question is, how do you compare yourself to a REIT platform?
Okay, first let me answer the second question to a REIT, at least for that matter. I mean, this is the most common question which we get asked, and we put a separate FAQ on our platform itself so that people get a complete understanding of it. But let me go to exact numbers today, as such, right? Let me take the three REITs which are available. Brookfield is still not listed, but let's take Mindspace and Embassy. Embassy is a far better example because it's already a year and a half old as a matured REIT as such. Now, in the West, all the REITs for that matter, the best performing REIT on an average does not grow more than 4 to 5% year on year, right? That is the maximum a REIT has appreciated over a period of time. And the returns are also in the range of about 4 to 5% year on year, what a REITs have typically given in the West as well. In India, because we get better returns for that matter, you're hoping that you would also make better returns for that matter. An Embassy REIT listed at about 300, 320 levels, went up to 518 levels and is back at 353 levels. Now, if investors looking at investing in a REIT from a real estate investment standpoint, he clearly is not in for this kind of a volatility as a matter of fact. You even consider, fine, I'm okay with the volatility because I get a liquidity option to liquidate anytime. Versus our platform, which is not as liquid as what a REIT is, because we are in comparison, we are a real estate. But a REIT, if you go and go through the actual fine prints, an Embassy REIT has given a return of only about 4.6% in the entire year if you enter at a 350 level today, right? So that is the clear differentiation. What is there versus all our properties today on our platform give upwards of 8.5% kind of a return, right? So you're talking about investing into a property, knowing the tenant, knowing the micro market, and a clear tangible product versus a product where you have no control over what's happening. Whether the returns, I mean, is it going to be regular enough for that matter for you? It's not compulsory for them also to do it because they can always keep reaping that money into other projects at the same time. So this is one of the core differences, like a Brookfield REIT also for that matter, which is there. There's a good amount of debt which is there, where for them to achieve the 7.5% return is going to take them about 2 to 3 years at least for that matter before they can start deploying that kind of returns to the investors. Now, if the REIT price goes up and you enter at that prices, then obviously things change completely for that matter. Now, I gave you an example of the amount of money which gets poured into residential real estate for that matter. However, REIT as such, as a total market share, is about 70,000-80,000 crores in the last 1.5 years, which has come, where retail participation is less than 10%. So clearly, as much as you might want to buy all the REIT shares for that matter, clearly there is a big opportunity and there are multiple investors who are still investing and directly owning real estate or coming to platforms like us and trying to buy properties and start owning and start making passive returns and make long-term capital value appreciation as well. So again, like I said, the market is just too big for you to look at not participating into such platforms or such opportunities and start owning it. Coming to the regulation.
And just to add here, I think to me again, the ability to have the returns directly linked to a particular asset which you have complete visibility and lens into, I think is a differentiator. The market will function differently. There will be volatility. And there are advantages of the market. No one's taking it away. I think each investor should look at them as separate instruments. They may be both linked to the same underlying asset of real estate, but the returns and the liquidity, etc., will function differently, and an investor must definitely keep that in mind.
Correct, absolutely. I mean, like especially if I take US as an example, right? I mean, US REIT market is I think upwards of about 40, 50 years as such, and is trillions of dollars in a market. Still platforms like us, there's a platform like Cadre, cadre.com, which is only about 5.5 years old and manages about $3.5 billion in AUM, right? So if REIT was so good as a product itself, why do platforms like ours are still doing so well? And why are people still buying direct real estate, right? So it's a very simple comparison that why are you buying an HDFC stock directly when you can buy an HDFC mutual fund, which is going to invest in an HDFC stock as such, right? So it is a different thing. Like you said, it's tangible, getting clarity, knowing each and everything about the property and then investing accordingly with the tenant profile. It has its own merits and risks. Likewise, the REIT also has its own merits and risks as such. Clearly a great product. And what we're doing is effectively just a replacement to you directly investing into a property, right? There's no other difference as such from a market opportunity standpoint. Second you had was with respect to regulation. So right now there's no clarity with respect to what regulation we may fall under. We have our requisite licenses, which is required with RERA as a broker as such, for that matter. And from a SEBI standpoint, which although many people say you're not supposed to, but we still went ahead and done. We've applied in the SEBI regulatory sandbox. We are one of the few companies which are there, where we are wanting and saying that, hey, why don't you work towards regulating? Because across the world, this is a regulated space, so why not look at it? Which is what I was telling you, right? For even the regulator or the government to foresee that something like this is going to happen is difficult for them. So it's only when you go forward and you do something and try to achieve it is when people come in and start investing. Now, what people have been doing before was something with an AIF structure, which is an alternative investment fund, where a large company comes up with a fund, you invest in the fund, and the fund decides where to invest. You have no control over it. What the fund does is the fund takes the money in the fund and then creates SPVs and own assets. We are telling investors, hey, we give you all the opportunity, we make you decide each and everything, and you directly invest into the asset holding company, right? So it's a far better transparent structure rather than you relying only on a fund manager who's deciding whether this is a great opportunity for you or not, for that matter. Here you decide which is the great opportunity and you invest accordingly. So that is the core differentiation which we are trying to bring through the platform. Second, which is very, very important, is let's say when you're doing it through a fund, you have no idea where the money is getting deployed, right? Which market. You might not be somebody who says, I like a Bombay market anymore, right? I think Bombay is saturated. I don't want to invest in Bombay, but I want the fund to invest only into Hyderabad or Bangalore. But you can't take the decisions, the fund manager takes the decision. Over here, we give you an opportunity. You decide whether this property or this market is something you like it. You might even double down your investment because you know each and everything about the asset and the kind of market it is into, and start owning these things accordingly, right? So that is another advantage you get, is where you control your investments versus a fund manager controlling it. But if you look at traditionally, how have all the funds performed? Barring a very few funds which have done very well, most of these large private equity real estate funds have given abysmal returns to investors. There are funds which have given negative returns to investors as well. And here it is because, again, they take the risks of under construction, etc. Here we are talking about completed rent yielding assets, 8-9% kind of rental returns. Even if we go into conservative of 4-5% capital appreciation, we are talking about a 13 to 15% kind of an IRR, which we could make comfortably as an investment. And for us as a platform, we are very comfortable with that. Obviously, we aspire to make more for investors, but this is a benchmark. If you're not able to generate at least this much, then there's no point of us investing into any opportunity asset. So that is what we look at, these 12 to 15% kind of IRR properties. Again, if you look at these 20% kind of IRR properties, has its own risks associated with it, for that matter. So we're looking at capital safety as the topmost priority for investors as such, and a regular or regularity of return where they keep making regular returns as such. So these are the two core focus areas, and eventually investors take their decision accordingly.
Understood. And I think you covered a few other questions in that answer. One of the things that is coming up, again and again from investors is the 25 lakh rupee minimum threshold, right? How do you think of that? And is that as you go through the sandbox process, do you believe that will get lower in terms of minimum investment?
So we are not looking at lowering our ticket size anytime soon. In fact, maybe with time we might increase it for that matter, but definitely not looking at lowering it. Again, we don't want we want mature investors coming on the platform. So hence the 25 lakh is a good barrier from a maturity standpoint. That is what we are looking at as well. Also, we have our own challenges why we can't lower the ticket size. Every property is about 25-50 crores, which we're looking at, and properties are getting expensive also day by day. We float an SPV, which has its own limitations to the number of people which can own a particular property as well. So, hence, from that standpoint, 25 lakhs will be the minimum ticket size, which will always be there on our platform, and we most likely would not reduce it.
Understood. Okay. Interestingly, Sudarshan, and for members of the audience, we did an experiment where we lowered our ticket size from 20,000 to 15,000 as an experiment. While we had the same challenges, but we wanted to just try it out. And obviously, our deal sizes are smaller, so it allows us the flexibility. And we saw a very interesting uptake for first-time investors to come in because, as we spoke, people would like to test the market first, test the product first. And we're definitely trying to explore if we can lower our ticket size even down to 10,000 rupees. It may not happen immediately, but that's something we are trying at our end to do. There are very interesting ideas are coming up on the chat as well about how possibly we can work together, Strata and Grip, and you and I chatted about it as well. But one of the themes is can Grip be a investor in a Strata deal? All right. By having investors participate at a smaller ticket size of 20,000 rupees and then put in a cumulative 25-50 lakh rupees on a starter deal. Let me not pose that to your question, but I think it's an interesting idea and something for us to definitely chat about later. There are a few questions which also relate to how old you are, where you're operating from, the kind of assets you deal with. I'll connect with you offline and maybe we can send answers to the specific investors on those very specific questions. I'll just take the last few minutes to answer a couple of questions that are common between Grip and Strata, and then maybe we can sign off on the session. Insurance, right? Insurance for the assets. Why don't you share what you do as a practice on Strata, and I can talk about Grip.
So we take it's compulsory for us in every asset for that matter, and we usually cover it as a part of asset management as well to ensure all the assets. So we take fire and burglary insurance for all our properties. We don't take any other insurance beyond that because that is the core important point for us. Typically, the grade A assets which we buy, it is a part of the property management itself because the developer who's managing the asset or whose asset it is, he makes it mandatory for everyone to take it and covers it as a part of common area maintenance or other kind of taxes, or covers it up with property tax for that matter. So all our properties are with insurance. We don't take up any asset where there is no insurance, and if there is not, then we insist on taking the insurance and we cover it on their behalf. So insurance is important because I don't want a situation where I've invested 50 crore in a warehouse and just for meager 3 lakh rupees, some cyclone hits tomorrow for that matter and the entire warehouse is off for that matter. We definitely cover insurance as much as possible with the entire property value.
Yeah, and I think the same at our end. Every asset that we purchase is insured from a theft, burglary, fire perspective. And hence, in the case that something untoward happens, there is an insurance for that asset. Also above that, in the case from an investor's perspective, the risk of the utilization of the asset maintenance is with the corporate leasing partner that we have, whether it is RentShare, Zip, Furlenco, whoever it is. They are the ones who are responsible for it. And hence, from an investor's perspective, there is a double layer of protection. One is the insurance, but also is from the corporate leasing partner perspective. That said, I think we are trying to do a lot more in terms of even protecting against contractual risk, right? Because the leasing may be a defaulter, may contractually default. And how do you protect against that risk? I think some of these interesting insurance products that we're trying to work on with third parties are now sort of beginning to happen as discussions because of the scale that we have reached. And hopefully we'll be able to bring this into play for investors. There's one question regarding tax, which is specific to Grip, and I want to make sure I address it because it's something that we commonly hear. From a Grip perspective, we create a limited liability partnership or an SPV, very similar to what Strata does. And the tax that is paid, the 30%, is the corporate tax that is paid by the LLP. Any returns subsequent to that are distributed to the investors on a post-tax basis, and hence what they receive is effectively not taxed. If you are an investor whose marginal tax rate is upwards of 25%, this is a tax positive structure for you because the effective tax rate after accounting for depreciation at the limited liability partnership is normally in the range of 15 to 20%. If you're obviously someone who has a 0% marginal tax rate, this is not an effective tax rate structure for you, and you would be better off receiving the lease income directly. To make sure that we are serving both our investors and providing them the best possible returns, we do have an option to receive pre-tax income, and then for the investor to pay tax at their end. We'd be very happy to go into the details of that on a one-on-one chat as well. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and I'd like to wrap up this session. I know there are a few questions still pending. We'll commit to work with Sudarshan to make sure that each of those are responded. I really like the theme of seeing opportunities where Strata and Grip can work together. One is obviously on the transaction size, but I think the other angle that Sudarshan and I've been talking about is warehouse, where warehouse as an industry is obviously growing rapidly. It's of great interest to Strata, and as some of the participants may know, we currently have a deal on a platform with a warehouse operator called Holysol, which runs about 1 million square feet in warehousing, where we're leasing all the assets within the warehouse, right? Everything that makes the warehouse work. So collectively between Strata and Grip, we are providing financing for owning the warehouse and operating the warehouse in terms of assets. And very early days, but I think that's something that could be very interesting as a synergy between our companies, and maybe something we can create as an interesting investment proposition.
No, absolutely, Nikhil. I mean, just to for the entire audience, this is actually what Nikhil mentioned is what we will proactively be looking at, not just say warehouse, even let's say, like we have grade A tenants like say a Capgemini and all these other companies for that matter. We can always see the fit outs for that matter as an opportunity when we have a 5-year lock-in with them. On a 5-year period, if we can amortize and make that kind of money for that matter, why not this as an opportunity to fit out? So we can always go and make it a much better proposition for a tenant as well, that hey, why are you putting such a large sum of money? Yeah, here we can participate, and we can always amortize the cost in 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is for that matter, so that we make our revenue out of that. I mean, as rentals and as Grip investors for that matter, you can enjoy with a grade A company, which is there because there is a good amount of control we have over our lease arrangement, which is very enforceable, and likewise the arrangement what Grip would make on your behalf would be as enforceable at the same time. So this as a partnership can do well, where we can collaborate together on opportunities. Very early days, we've just started conversing on those things, but something which we can proactively do, because it becomes a very good proposition for a tenant as well, right? Because here is a player which is getting the property, and here's a player who's doing the entire fit outs of the property, right? So because our investors look at buying an asset without any kind of fit outs, and that is something which we proactively do. And here is Grip as a platform which only buys these as an investment product altogether, right? So this is something where we are looking at collaboration, whether it's the Holysol deal, which Nikhil mentioned to start with, but bunch of other things which we should proactively and we would proactively keep bringing to you on the platform, on respective platforms, would be that there is a classic collaboration over a period of time which we would be building for ourselves.
Absolutely. No, that's very exciting, and we're also excited to announce. And I'll close with this. I won't take more time. Is we're launching a new deal today. Sudarshan, we started something called a combo deal, which is our equivalent of a mutual fund deal. So we combine multiple leases into a single opportunity, so that investors, especially first-time investors, can take a safer bet by diversifying across leases. This time, we're providing an opportunity to invest across 5 different companies in one single shot. And these are some of the most marquee names which we have worked with and have leadership positions in the industry. So we'll be launching the deal today, along with the one that we have for Holysol. And I just wanted to put it out for the participants to definitely go and check that out. But thank you so much, Sudarshan, for joining this call. I think very informative chat. A lot to learn and a lot to work on together with you. We're looking forward to it, and we'll definitely reconnect. And wanted to thank once again the members who joined us. Thank you for your questions. I think the more and more interactive this becomes, I think there's a lot for everyone to take away from this conversation. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Sudarshan. Bye.
Bye.
Have a break.